Good morning. It's the Daily Office Digest, and we are Numbers 12 and Hebrews 12. Numbers 12 is a really interesting story where we have Moses' siblings, Miriam and Aaron, um, challenging his authority. Now, there's a bit of a background here. He married an Ethiopian or Cushite woman. Um, Ethiopia, Cush, also area we might know as Sudan, Nuba area. Um, there's argument here and there, but somewhere in um, northeast Africa, most likely. Also could be a reference to Zipporah. There's a couple of theses of what's going on here. One is that Moses had more than one wife. So Zipporah and this new woman. The other version would be Zipporah died and Moses remarried, and this woman was of a foreign extraction. And the final view is that this is indeed Zipporah, right? She's the Midianite. We don't really know that much about Midianites. And this is just kind of this understanding of um, all of it is kind of a concern about ethnicity, even race, depending on how we want to define those things. It's ugly. But what's interesting is that really ugly prejudice is actually a smokescreen for something more fundamental. We get caught up in this because of our context today and our needs and the various sins we face. And so we want to it's not wrong to make a big deal out of this kind of prejudice being shown here. Um, Again, God does bring in Gentiles into the covenant kind of as a prelude to the gospel, right? But what I see and what we see here is both Aaron and Miriam have had prophetic roles in ministry. Miriam's song, for example, has a little bit of that to it. Aaron certainly has had his points there going on there. And in chapter 11, we had mentioned, so if we skipped over this, but what's interesting is in 11, I believe 26 and 27, yeah, 26, 27, 29, sorry, Eldad and Medad, who were prophesying by the Spirit. And Moses, and they're like, should we stop them? And Moses is like, no, they're fine. You know, prophetic ministry is good. Um, and it all, and Miriam also likely had this going on too, right? So they've had this both Moses, Aaron and Miriam have had kind of a role like that too, and they start using this to challenge Moses's authority and authenticity. So they're going to make him less than them because of his marriage to a non-Israelite, and kind of show he's not really God's man, at least as much as they are there is equal to him, right? Because it's not the fact that um, right, they spoke against him for his marriage, for his wife. Then they said, has the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Has he not spoken also by us? And the Lord hears it. Well, that's the challenging the prophetic authority. That has nothing to do with Moses' wife, right? That other stuff's a way to, and my guess is they're ginning up the rest of the crowd, right? The rest of the nation in the wilderness. Now, that's what makes sense when Jay says Moses is very meek of all men upon the face of the earth. Um, my wife was reminding me of the fact that, the traditional understanding is Moses authored most of the Pentateuch, or even all the Pentateuch. So Moses saying that he's the very meekest man is kind of a self-defeating purpose. Of course, there's a strong argument to be made that even though he wrote most of it, perhaps he wasn't just writing about himself here. Maybe an editor came in later, or not long after his death, possibly Joshua. Right? We don't know, but and Moses could have written this because he could have defended himself and basically pointed to his rightful authority and offices. But to be meek he lets the Lord speak on his behalf, which is very much like Jesus, right? Moses is foreshadowing Jesus here. But so God speaks suddenly unto all three of them. Remember, they're siblings. And he calls them to the tabernacle. Terrifying to think about. They go out to the tabernacle. God came down in the pillar, stands at the door of the tabernacle as he has at various times. And he calls Aaron and Miriam forth. Come forward, step forward. We kind of see how this is going. Um, and then God shows why Moses' ministry is superior than theirs into basically any prophet that will come up after him until Jesus, I would say. So prophets, God says, they are, God communicates to them in visions and in dreams, oftentimes. But Moses isn't like that because he speaks to God mouth to mouth. And it's kind of interesting. That's why Elijah's prophetic ministry is so important too, because he has something similar. He has similar experiences. But regardless, you have a mediatory role. You have a face-to-face fellowship, very close fellowship, not in dark speeches. And right, if you read some of the prophets, they're speaking in dark speeches. They're speaking in ways that are metaphorical and highly metaphorical, highly symbolic, strange visions, very dark, and you have to kind of work through them, look at the pictures. But that's not it so with Moses. Um, and so God um, chastises them, and he goes after Miriam first, or at least that's what happens. Miriam became stricken with leprosy. It's kind of like, why her and not Aaron? Is it just some sort of evil patriarchal text? Well, there could be a couple things going on here. One that's kind of the more English speaking, I haven't gone deep in the text way, is Miriam was the one that was causing most of the trouble. Another way to look at it is Aaron, is the high priest. If the high priest has leprosy, he can't do his ministry for the people. So God is in a sense sparing the people by sparing Aaron. Could be more stuff going on, but those are two things that come immediately to mind. Really, I'm actually going to look at commentaries after this, and I'll probably have a different answer because I find this so interesting. Why Miriam, not Aaron, right away? However, what's interesting, right? It's a bad case of leprosy, right? She's basically the Walking Dead, which is leprosy is a picture of sin, which is being of the Walking Dead, right? Leprosy is a symbol of sin. And Moses, interestingly, cries unto the Lord, and he intercedes for his sister. Heal her now. And then God refers to some customs and laws, if I spit in her face. Should she not be ashamed? So God is acting as a father towards Miriam and chastising her. And she gets shut out of the camp for 7 days in a similar way of chastisement and to be cleansed again. Actually, was shut out of the camp for 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. Actually, that's not clear whether she was healed or not. I was assuming she was just in this morning's reading, just reading through it, like, oh, he got right, because that's what Moses asked for. We're not told that. But that's left unanswered explicitly, but I kind of think that happened. But they move on to Paran, the wilderness of Paran. They move from Hazeroth. A lot going on there. It's really interesting, but we don't have time to go through it. But in any case, Moses' ministry is vindicated, right? He didn't speak for himself. He let God speak for him. We need to remember that too. Sometimes we don't need to speak for ourselves. We need God to speak for us, or others speak up for us too. Be meek in that way, right? Don't be arrogant and boastful. Hebrews 12:18, kind of continuing on we're in the real thing, right? Mount Sinai was, burned with fire, darkness, tempest, etc. Sound of a trumpet, and that was utterly terrifying back in the day. But now you've come, right? It was terrible, right? And even Moses, the meekest man, was I exceedingly fear and quake. But now we're come to the real thing. So Mount Sinai is the Old Covenant, right? The Old Testament. But now you're come to Mount Zion, unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and an innumerable company of angels, right? To the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to God the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Jesus the mediator of the new covenant, to the blood sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. I want to talk more about that, better things than that of Abel, right? Because Abel's just an innocent person who's murdered, whereas Jesus is very similar, but then also there's a resurrection, but also there's more going on there, if I'm remembering rightly, but we don't have time to go through that. We've already gone pretty long anyway. See that refuse not him that speaketh, for if they escaped not who refused him that spake on earth, how much more shall we escape? So that's probably a reference to Moses, and then how much we're not going to escape if we turn away from him that speaks from heaven, which I assume is Christ, right? Christ being a second better Moses. The stakes are higher. The stakes are higher. That's what is the emphasis over and over again. You thought the earthly, manifestation on Mount Sinai was scary with the fire and the tempest and the storm and the voice and the thundering. Well, now you're in the heavenly temple, surrounded, or heavenly Mount Zion, surrounded by all the saints made perfect, right? And all the glory there. They are actually powerful and glorious and terrifying. Angels, God himself, Jesus Christ himself. And that's what actually is being foreshadowed and even hinted at in Sinai. Sinai. So now Zion is so much more. So are you going to be, taking that lightly? You ought not. You ought not. We are receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved. Let us have grace, whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear, right? That's how we serve God. His grace. For our God is a consuming fire. Purifying, consuming, burning away the dross, that sort of thing, bringing light, heat, all that sort of thing. I'll leave us at that, but it is interesting, right? We've already talked about how scary things were in Numbers 12, right? God can strike you down with leprosy. Now we're in an even more real time, Hebrews 12, where all that was being foreshadowed in the days of Moses has now been fulfilled in Christ, and so the stakes are higher. It is, in a sense, more dangerous. But that's actually encouraging too. It's more potent, right? In a way that is encouraging to us as we continue our Christian walk. So I'll see you all later this afternoon, but I wish you all God bless, and I'll see you later.